few more questions now for part 3, starting off with Chris Brody's. What's your favourite Championship away ground? And I will add and why.
Okay. For me, it's not necessarily the Newcastles and London Irish days. I hate the games when there's 3 people watching, and it takes me back to sort of some of the clubs I was at. Sorry, people keep ringing me. Takes me back to some of the clubs I was at earlier on in my career when you'd have more dogs or animals watching the game than actual people, and those games really frustrate me. But the ones I love the most are the Jerseys. Doncaster is probably my favourite. Is Goldenton Road at Bedford. Partly because growing up in the East Midlands is been around Bedford a little bit. I've seen that, but it's packed with people, proper rugby grounds, very much like Cov. In the way there's loads of people, it just feels like a good day out, and it's one of those days. And just as much I'd like to be with a beer in my hand watching the game as I would be in the scaffolding tower shouting at someone.
How important is that post match regardless of whether you win or lose? The post match, the ability to sit down and chill out and eat. You think of somewhere like Goldington Road where there is that area for you to do that and to chat to the guys from the other clubs as well. There are some grounds where that doesn't happen because the facilities aren't there. To have that, how important is it?
It's it's probably what I love about Cov the most. It's still being able to sort of link back to why you love rugby and what you fell in love with about rugby and the real values of the sport. And this is what I think is one of the best parts of the championship that we need to harness more is that proper rugby club combined with professional rugby. And whether that's Castle Park or at Donny or whether that's over in Jersey at Cov or at Bedford, I think they're proper rugby clubs that you can sit down, you can have a pint, you can have some food, you can talk to the players after the game, you can talk to the fans after the game. My mum and dad come in quite a lot, and it feels like the perfect mix, and that's what I think the league could harness more and sort of develop on. If other clubs could do the same and try and manage pro rugby and real rugby and put it together, that's where the romance of the game's still at for me.
I only realised this season that there's a bowling alley next door to Jersey's. The other half of the main clubhouse at Jersey's a bowling alley. So I think we should.
Well, that is something that maybe I have to take Harvey on at next year.
Maybe get an evening flight back and go bowling after the.
Definitely.
Anyway, this goes to show what lockdown's doing for all of us all of our thinking at the minute. From Steve Horner, when we perform well and it looks like our best team, why do we then change the side? These players are then subbed or not selected. It's all about squad rotation.
Okay, so Steve, you need to think there's the number of things that go into. You're probably making your comment or your question based on the result of the following week or the performance of the following week, and the things that come into that are who we're playing. If we're playing someone easy one week and then someone hard the next, it's irrelevant what we're doing with squad rotation and so on. But we don't actively rotate too much. This year is probably the first year I've played around with the back row. When we've had Jack Ram, Luke Wallace, Ben Adams, Ben Nutley, Adam Peters, Tiki Nolo, Ryan Burrows, there's a lot of quality there, but there's a lot of different styles of players as well. And actually, if you've got Adam Peters in the back row, he supports your line out a lot more than maybe a Tiki will, but then Tiki gives us a lot more ball carrying. And that might take the pressure off Ryan Burrows. That if teams take Buzz out of the game or target Buzz, then we need to make sure we've got those other players who can do that. And Luke Wallace gets over the ball more. He also defends a little bit wider, whereas Jack Ram in attack gives us a lot more on the ball. Nuts and Ben Adams gives us a bit of a hybrid of everything as well as workhorses and with different sides to their game. So it's about balance. Sometimes we haven't had a choice. There's earlier on in the season we were going with a pretty consistent back three with Stokes and Knocker or Trimble and Andy Buller-Macau was sort of feeding into that. But the injury rates of some of those players was meaning we had to make changes and we had to bring different people in, and that's where we had to use the wider squad. So rotation isn't something we actively try and do. It's more a case of, is there injuries? Is there a different style? Do we need to be providing different more ball carrying threat, or are we playing Ealing or a team that have got really good line out defence? So do we need to have multiple options in the line out? And that might mean that instead of having George Oram or James Voss or Scott Russell in the second row, you've got more Nardakers and Alex Wolford type players that are quicker in the air and move up and down. Or if we're scrummaging, do we need to have a heavier front row rather than a more mobile front row? Are we at home or are we away? What type of pitch we're on? Do we want to play with a second facilitator at 10, 12, or do we? Now we've got Louis Brown. He's someone we can get on the ball, and he can facilitate a little bit more in terms of moving the ball around. So that takes the pressure off that. So that allows us to do something different with our centre partnership. Do we want to get at them at outside centre with Rob Knox or Andy Bullen-Macau and really take them on, or do we want someone like Heath in there that can be a real defensive maestro with that, or do we have Andy Forsyth that, as we got hold of him towards Christmas onwards, he has a little bit of both. So there's so many different things that come into it about how do we want to attack the game, how do we want to defend. It goes back to your earlier point really of how much of intent do we go in the game with. If we're playing Newcastle, we need to shut down some of their options first so that we can allow ourselves to play our own cards. So other games we go out and just go, this is us, and know that it might be a tri-fest, but this is what we do. So it's a bit of balance and learning, and then just as you kind of get a bit of consistency and a bit of understanding of what you're doing, either coronavirus comes along or you get a couple of injuries in key positions and you have to adapt. So it's not as thought out or as manipulative as the fans and supporters might think. It's actually just us trying to play our best cards each week and understanding what they are. And quite often after the game, you recognise where you've made mistakes and then you try and adapt the following week.
How, you have been extraordinarily comprehensive with that. How challenging is it when you've got players who have multiple skill sets or different types of skill sets in terms of trying to balance that all off?
Well, that's the game, isn't it? That's the game in terms of, it's the beauty of rugby. You can have a fat person, a thin person, a tall person, a small person, and actually everyone's got a part to play, and that from top to bottom in the leagues. But then it's the game from, that's competition, that's the tactics, that's the technical side of the game, and actually what have we got, and what we've built as the beauty of the squads that we've had is we've got those options, and actually sometimes the depth in our squad has been a bit of a hindrance because it's like having 10 aces up your sleeve, sort of, and you can play different bits at different times, and it's actually trying to understand what's worked. It's hard. That's the hard part of it all. That's the bit that I'm battling with. I'm learning about, and I haven't been around forever, so I'm learning each day and trying to work out and learn from my mistakes, and that's when, as I said earlier on, you surround yourself with good people that, we in our coaching team alone, and from Deeks to James Scagesborough, Anthony Allen, and with Roscoe as well, they've got different experiences of the game at various different levels, from the top of the game, international rugby, down to the community game as well, and that's where we're trying to pull those experiences out and go, there's a lesson, right, let's grab that, let's apply that, let's play with Will Owen at 12 and let's play Rob Knox there, and what does that combination look like, and how, and who brings the most out of each other. I think it's something that Luke Wallace, probably working with Luke this year, reason why it's been useful for me is he perhaps doesn't ball carry as well as sitting in the back row or make as many tackles, but actually he defends a little bit wider. He makes the people around him better, and really understanding that he might not physically do something on his own with the ball in hand or either side of the ball there, but he makes people around him better because he talks better, he gets on his feet quicker, he sets better examples, and we've had that before with Sam Tutupo. It's understanding everything about the player, not just their physical characteristics or their skill set. It's understanding that and then trying to put the jigsaw together in a way that wins you a game of rugby. And then next week you're going to need to put a different jigsaw together because it's a different opposition.
From Peter Redhead, do you see a two-tier championship this year, i.e. those that are financially well funded and those who need to put out semi-professional squads?
I know where you're going with that, Pete, but I think the key thing to understand is last season we had a full-time professional squad, and we went away to semi-pro sides and lost. So I think it's irrelevant. It's still down to how much. It's not how much money you've got. It's how professional you are in your approach and the detail you can put in your rugby program. And that's why I think we can bridge the gap on the teams that are perceived to be above us or spend more money than us, the Ealings and the Saracens. We can bridge that gap pretty quickly because I think we've got better expertise and better people in our camp to be able to do that. And that means that we need to become more consistent, as I said. But the 12 teams in the league, there'll be Richmond that are very, with Steve Hill, is very blunt about what they do. They're not changing their model. They're training a couple of nights a week. The guys have got full-time jobs, but they harness that. They use that as a weapon almost. And it makes teams go away to them and think, shit, we can't lose to these because they're just training twice a week. But actually, they're still putting lots of quality into what they're doing. they've still got lots of quality in their programme overall. So I don't think you need to worry about having two leagues. It's not like National One where there was the haves and the have-nots. There is the haves with Saracens, but everyone can beat everyone. It's a competitive league. It comes down to consistency and lots of other factors that are not just based on money.
And just a quick one on Richmond. I remember doing some research on them last year when they're in the champ, and the number of players who've played in that first team more than 100 times is ridiculous. As a collective, they've all grown up together and bought into the culture.
Yeah, and Steve Hill's done a fantastic job, and I was gutted when they went down with the sort of Yorkshire Carnegie fiasco 18 months ago, whatever it was now. I'm glad that they've come back up. They're a proper rugby club. Got some really good values, and I enjoy going down there. Another old school part of the league that is brilliant. It's a great experience to go down there and play against them. But he's put a good programme together. He knows exactly what he's got. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's up against it with different challenges, very similar to Barnsley at Hartpury. They've got different cards to play, but they make the best of them, and that's what makes the league exciting.
Tony Nolan asks, do you think realistically Cov will be ring-fenced from gaining promotion to the Premiership where the club belongs? My second part of that is that if ring-fencing actually happens, is it actually an opportunity for the Championship to stop trying to bridge a potentially unbridgeable gap that we were talking about financially earlier on, and instead focus on the good things within the league itself?
Well, look, forgive Tony for maybe being the victim of my next comment, but I hate the comment about where we belong. We don't belong anywhere. We belong where we are at the moment. That's what we've earned. As far as League Rugby is concerned, I think it's only the first season of League Rugby that Coventry were in the top flight, and we got relegated. So since then, we've been in the second league or the third league division side. Of League Rugby. I appreciate where the club's history was at. I think it's fantastic and it underpins everything that we're about. It gives us the history and the traditions of the club, but we don't belong in the Premiership at all. Let's get rid of Pete White. Pete White ringing me. Sorry. We don't belong there at all. So we've got to work hard to make sure we earn and deserve the respect of being higher up in the pyramid of rugby that we can. In terms of ring fencing, 10 million. If you drop, is it Tony? Was it? If he drops 10 million quid on my door tomorrow, whatever he wants to do, then we can go in the Premiership. So it's ring fenced around money anyway. It's not necessarily ring fenced in league structure or up and down relegation, promotion, and so on. The more money you've got, the higher up the league pyramid you tend to be.
But that said, just to go back to, let's take maybe the Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball examples in America. Is that a minor league baseball club like the Portland Sea Dogs, which is a fantastic day out. I hope if you're ever in that part of New England, it's really worth going to. They're never going to play Boston Red Sox in a competitive game, never. Because that's just the nature of it. But it doesn't stop them focusing on the good things about it. And this would be an opportunity potentially for Championship clubs, like you're talking about before, to focus on the good rugby, the competitive thing, the history, the heritage, the great day out, all of those positives that we have.
Yeah, I think the overall structure of the English game at the moment is fascinating to watch. I think there's going to be a lot of changes. There's clubs in the Premiership that are well set up and can ride this little storm out. There's clubs, in the Premiership that are not very well set up and maybe not ride it out. And that will either create gaps and opportunities for others to fill, or it will challenge everything we know about the game at the moment in terms of the league setup. I think it's a balance of, for me, Chris, is being realistic with where you are right now and the challenges you face, and yes, you can dream and look as far ahead as you can and think the ifs and buts and so on, but right now Cov have got a job list. We've got to go and get that done and focus on the next year or so. The Championship clubs have got a lot of work to do on and off the pitch before they can either mutter the words of trying to be in the Premiership, let alone around ring fencing or so on. In terms of the up and down relegation promotion, I think personally, this is not necessarily a Coventry comment, but from my own point of view, I want to see that continue, because that is where I think the romance and the ambition and everything you kind of strive towards can be rewarded. And then there's the threat at the other end. And that's what sport's about. It's about winning and losing. It's about being top of the table and getting promotion and lifting a trophy and going up and then a new challenge, or not about going down and rebuilding and coming back. So I'd like to see that stay in the game. If there's some parameters around that it's not every year, or it's 2, 3, 4 years, or if it's an application process and you have to become all round, ticked off all the boxes before you can apply to be in the Premiership, and then you've got to have sustainability there, then fine. But I think it needs to remain in some form or another.
And finally, this is from Clint Cuthbert is the name on the Twitter, but I don't think it is Clint Cuthbert. How does it feel to be an inspiration to up-and-coming kids like Phil Bolton?
Up-and-coming kids like Phil Bolton. Well, normally he's talking about my chins and the growth of my chins on social media, so thank you very much to Mr. Cuthbert. What's the question?
How does it feel to be an inspiration to up-and-coming kids like Phil Bolton?
I'm sure you'd have to ask Phil Bolton that himself, but I'm going to respectfully decline that question. In this point of view, you can ask Bolts on his Q&A next week, I'm sure.
Roland, thanks for your time. This is, what was going to be a 20-minute has turned into the best part of an hour. So thanks for your time. Obviously, it's still a busy time in terms of the off season. And just on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of excitement ahead of next season, even though we don't know when it's going to start, we don't know what the summer's got to bring, but actually, looking forward in terms of how the club's set up, how excited are you by next season and the years to come?
I think it's a difficult one to answer with a 1 to 10. Obviously, I'm privy to the conversations and the multiple video calls and meetings and so on that's over the last month or so on both sides of the club, and that's reassured me that we are in a good position. We are moving forward. Yeah, there's been a few bumps, and we've ridden them out, most of them already anyway. So we're in a good position to sort of move forward, and we've got some really good people involved at the club from top to bottom, and that means that we're in a good spot. We're able to move forward. I'm excited. If you want a number, it's 11 out of 10 because I just want to get back. I want to get back and get cracking, and we've got a huge job list. And I'm excited when everyone talks about us, or as John's talked to us about us going back a year or 18 months. The biggest challenge for me is to see if we can put the club back where we were a month ago before that 18 months. And I see that as a challenge, and I'm excited by that. And I'm excited to see the supporters back at the club. I think the crowdfunding and a number of the things that I've seen, the constant messages I get on different social media from supporters, that level of excitement and the sort of family support feel that the club's got is brilliant. I can't wait to be back at Butts Park with hopefully thousands of people whenever that's allowed, and a rugby team. I would even take a losing game at Butts Park at the moment over any game at the moment. I just want to be back out there, and I'm excited to get going.